The late 90s was a very strange time for sports car racing. The collapse of the World Championship in the mid-90s really left a power struggle between sports car racing manufacturers. Do you build high-powered, high downforce GT cars, or do you build very light, very nimble prototypes? Well, today we are going to simulate the height of the prototype versus GT battle for supremacy. Now, in the 90s at the Rolex 24 at Daytona, there were two top classes. There was the World Sports Car class, which contained famous prototypes such as the Riley and Scott, and the car that is going to be populating the class today, the Ferrari 333 SP. The other class that was quite popular at the time was the GT1 or GTS category. The car you're looking at directly on your screen is a Panoz GT1. Now this car is a front-engine racing machine. It's got a big Roush Yates Ford V8 in the front of it, and it's amazing because these cars were so fast and so powerful. As you can see, they were able to match the much lighter and much more aerodynamically inclined Ferraris. This created some very interesting racing dynamics where you've got powerful GT cars and nimble prototypes going into the same corners at times. Of course, a lot of times this would lead to calamity when you've got different cars making different lap times in different places on the track. But that is going to make it very, very interesting to see how these cars match up in Project Cars 2 over a 25-minute simulation of the 1998 24 hours of Daytona. So we're going to go for a full 24-hour day-to-night cycle. There's going to be fog in the night and in the early morning, just like usually happens at the Rolex 24. It's going to be very interesting to see who will come out on top, the GT1s or the World Sports Cars. Let me know your pick down in the comments. Sit back, relax, and enjoy as the prototypes and the GTs fight for 90s sports car supremacy. So I may have managed to break the game. You're literally not supposed to be able to do a standing start here at Daytona, but for whatever reason the game is defaulted to a standing start. And we're underway here at Daytona. I got run up the back of by the sister Panoz in the race. And we're going to work down very carefully into turn one. Standing start definitely going to be a lot more sloppy than it would otherwise be if we were racing properly at Daytona, but we are underway. Well, just take that little bit of historical inaccuracy for what you will. Oh, as I really braked way too late there on the start. We're in the first horseshoe, but we're around a couple of the prototypes. I actually qualified third overall, and this game used to classify the cars how you qualified even if you were in a multi-class race, but for whatever reason, they patched it recently where regardless of where you qualify, you will now start with your class. And I know that's realistic for a couple of series in real life, but unfortunately, back in these days, they didn't really care what class you qualified in. You qualified where you qualified, so it's actually unrealistic for this style of racing. But just again, that's a minor nitpick, kind of like, I guess, having to do a standing start for the Rolex 24. I swear I turned that off, and I don't even think it's possible, or should be possible, to do a standing start in this game at Daytona. So why that happened, I will never know. Regardless, I guess you got to see something that you wouldn't otherwise see. So, we are running 6th right now. Like I said, 25-minute race, full day and night transition, no rain expected. Though, considering that we did a standing start, who knows? So we got 3 Ferraris up in front, then 2 Mercedes GT1 cars, and the rest of the field very spread out behind me. So we won't have to worry too much about them. There are GTO cars in this race as well. And some of the GTO cars are pretty close to the GT1 lap times. So that could make some very interesting racing. Now actually the GT1 cars actually qualified on the pole. The blue Mercedes just ahead of me, or 2 cars ahead of me, actually qualified in the overall pole, but again, for whatever reason, the game didn't give the pole position to the car that earned it. So he's fighting behind these Ferraris up here. Now the Ferrari 333 SP, not the car I'm driving, of course. I'm driving the Panoz, but that was the dominant car in Rolex 24 competition in the late 1990s. Now they got beat a few times by the Riley and Scott, and actually got beat by GT1 class cars like the Viper and the Corvette. But as a whole, that was the car you wanted to have. Now the Panoz I'm driving, like I said, is very interesting. Front engine, rear wheel drive, no ABS, no traction control. Very manly man's car here. But it's pretty nice to drive. Obviously it's an American effort. Don Panoz was Georgia based. Obviously the Roush Yates engine, considering my audience is very NASCAR centric, I probably don't need to explain to you the importance of Roush Yates in the motorsports world, or how good their engines are. But just the whole program, man, it's just something missing. The GT1 cars were definitely a weird departure from what had been known at sports car racing at the time, which was high-powered, very expensive prototypes. And it's kind of funny because the real-life World Sports Car Champion, or the World Endurance Championship as it's now known, is kind of starting to think about going back to kind of GT1 style racing at the top level, because the prototypes are now so expensive. Very similar to how it used to be. You can see how quickly the sun is setting here at Daytona. Obviously a 25-minute race. Ooh, as we get way too deep on the brakes there. We got the Ferrari all up our rear end here. We're faster on the banking portion. Well, we're not going to be faster if I do that. Side by side with the Ferrari, he's going to come through. So we lose a place to that Ferrari. So let's see if we can use this power, this American power, to drive around the outside of the 333 SP, pull 6 gear, horsepower, man, America. But there comes the European styling and aerodynamics. He just about got to the inside of me there in the bus stop, couldn't quite pull it off. The Ferraris up ahead are running side by side. We can probably get back to these GT1 cars. We are racing for a class victory as well as the overall. I'd like to get them both, but we need to run a little less sloppy this time, as night is definitely falling here at Daytona. I probably don't need to tell you that. You can tell by the headlights and by the general darkness in the area. So get down to second gear, pitch it in there. Now this is a thing about this driving this Panoz, is the front of the car. The V8 engine in the front is so large that it actually makes the whole front end of the car very, very long. So it moves you would otherwise be able to pull off, like pulling out at the last possible minute to pass somebody, like in a prototype or a kind of conventional GT car. You can't do in this car, because you will clip the back of that car ahead of you and spin them around, or worse yet, damage your front end beyond belief. And aerodynamics are a big key in this kind of racing. It's not like the Continental Series cars we were driving in the last Rolex 24 video. This car is very sensitive to that sort of thing. So as we work back out onto the banking, it's just a different experience. The other thing is you kind of have to turn in earlier than you would expect into corners, because you are suddenly further back in the car. I mean, literally in the cars like this, in the Panoz I should say, you're sitting almost on the rear wishbone where the rear tires are. So you really have to think about that, and where you place your car and where your turning points are. It's all different in a car like this, but it's spectacular to drive. And it's just represents, Panoz was always kind of a different thinking manufacturer when it came to racing. Of course, they also helped mastermind the Delta Wing project when it finally came to fruition in the ALMS. There's a crashed Ferrari. There was a crash down there in turn 1, just like I said, and I got snookered because I was trying to avoid the crash, and I got passed by that 333 SP just ahead of me. That's not an IMSA livery. I don't know what livery that's from. Actually, I think, you know, here's something, just a personal note. I'm pretty sure the 98 Rolex, either 98 or 97 was the first year of the Rolex I watched. I remember it because I was an IndyCar fan, and there were a couple of IndyCar drivers doing battle for the overall lead. Eliseo Salazar was in the Scandia 333 SP, and then John Paul Jr. was in a Ford, Riley, and Scott for Dyson Racing. And those two actually came to blows in the first corner, not literally, but actually got into each other going into turn one. I think Salazar got turned around by John Paul Jr., and it was a real mess. But I do remember that quite vividly. So we've got the 333 SP. You can just see how much better it is on the brakes than my car is. I think that car has ABS. They may have traction control as well. I don't know. I haven't driven the 333 SP all that much in this game, even though it is a fantastic piece of kit, as the British would say, as we work around the outside of it. Again, using that American power on the American part of the track. And it looks like the Mercedes are starting to move up through the prototypes, so if we want the overall win... Oh boy, look at that braking power of the Ferrari right there. If we want the overall win, we're going to have to go for it here. Have to get back up into the fight. And you can just see how far the Ferrari was able to pull away just through the first couple corners. I think my tires may be starting to go away. Car's starting to slide around a bit on the inside of the track. I think I'm locking the brakes up too much. Again, no ABS, no traction control. You just got your right and your left foot. And you have got to modulate braking. You have to modulate throttle application, which I did not do a very good job of right there, as you could see. As you could see. Got a car up behind me. Doesn't look like he's going to be much of a threat, though. The unfortunate aspect of this is that I lost out to the Ferrari and to the Mercedes and more Ferraris up in front. We haven't seen any fog yet. So we still got a long way to go in this race. Obviously, night at Daytona lasts a heck of a lot longer in January than it does in June in Le Mans, so we're going to be in the night for quite a while at this race, even if it's only 25 minutes. There you go, 15 minutes remaining. So, you know, we're 10 minutes into this race, and we're still hanging with these guys. Remember, the Ferraris are certainly the slowest of the LMP900 cars in this game. I actually got quite lucky. I restarted this race a few times just to get a grid that I felt was a little bit more historically accurate than you'd otherwise get. Because if you get like the Toyota GT1 in there and the Bentley and the Audi R8, those cars will mollywop the GT1s and the Ferrari 333 SPs. But if you can get like some Panoz's in there, some Porsche GT1 cars, and then the 333 SPs in the prototype division, they race incredibly closely. It's kind of one of those deals where, again, I just wish so much this game had a custom grid tool, because I'd love to just put a bunch of accurate GT1 cars, GTO class cars, and then the 333 SPs all in the same race, because, you know, it's such a cool and close matchup. So it definitely seems to me like when the tires cool off, the prototypes are way better. I think that's what's kind of gotten me right now, is that, of course, it's quite cool, even in Florida in the winter, and the tires have just gotten to the point where they're just not generating as much heat as they were in the daytime. And I think that's where I'm starting to lose out, is I've got a bigger, heavier, more powerful car that makes it more difficult to drive in the nighttime, and those prototypes, you know, have lighter weight, more aerodynamics, and they're able to get their tires up to temperature a little bit easier than I am. And they also have the added benefit, of course, of the aerodynamics on their cars that allow them to get through corners slightly faster, brake slightly later. So we get it down into second gear, almost lose control there. But But we're actually catching up to the back of this group once again. I wonder if they found lap traffic. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So just lift off a little bit through the kink. Yep, a little bit of brake lockup as well going into the second horseshoe. Oh, and here comes the fog. Here comes the fog. That's going to make things, this is going to make things difficult. I mean, obviously I have pretty good track memorization here. I don't know how your replay angle is going to look, folks, so I apologize if it gets a little bit hazy for the replay camera angle. I guess you'll just have to watch the onboard, but look at this fog here on the back straightaway, and there's trouble. Trouble for the Mercedes. I don't know what happened right there, but the Mercedes got turned around, spun across the back straightaway. I think he got turned by a prototype or something. I did notice the slowdown. I mentioned it as we were going into turn one, and a big, big crash there on the back straightaway. We got a slow car up here as well. Slow car on the left. And there's pit stops occurring. So that crash clearly created some havoc. Yeah, there's a Ferrari missing the rear wing. So it's all kicking off here at Daytona. What on earth? There just must have been a huge crash up in front. I was lucky not to be in that pack because I avoided it. Very, very strange. Let's take a look here. We're not in any kind of fuel or tire issues. So I have no idea why that crash occurred, and I have no idea why half the field just pulled off into the pits. Very, very strange. What position are we in? Okay, we're second. We're second at GT1. So the GT1 cars, after getting dominated in the night hours, have somehow come out in front. However, we've got several Ferraris behind me. So we're not out of the woods yet. And unfortunately, that means one of the Mercedes got through that pileup on the back straightaway and managed to pull away. As the fog is already dissipated. So that was quick. Now getting it down into the chicane. Definitely not quite attacking that as much as I probably should. But oh well. Got 10 minutes remaining in the race. So these races go pretty quick, but I think, you know, judging by the amount of people that seem to be engaged, the amount of likes on the videos, you guys seem to enjoy these slightly shorter length races, you know, kind of quality over quantity, and also they are quite exciting. But if you want me to do longer distance races, I certainly can. I'm certainly open to the possibility, as I almost lose it there in turn one, and the Ferrari goes around. So I'm going to have to fight the Ferrari again. Down into second gear. Now people are going to be yelling at me in the comments to focus. I don't know if I necessarily got unfocused there, but I certainly missed my braking point. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, it definitely feels like everything's quite cool, which you usually think is a good thing, but cold tires and brakes usually aren't a good combination when you're trying to hang on and wrangle a car as beastly as this Panoz. So we're gonna catch up to the Ferrari here. Obviously we need to use our kind of Dale Earnhardt skills to pull away from him on the banking, as we kind of missed the chicane there. Certainly did not apex that the way I probably should have. And that means we're going to be catching this Ferrari going into turn one. And as you guys saw in the intro, a lot of times that doesn't work out all that well, so it behooves us to get around him here fairly quickly. So we get him behind the Ferrari to the inside, heading into the tri-oval, and we'll just try to pull away. He's going to get a draft, though, so that's going to make things a little bit difficult going here into turn one. I brake early, kind of give him a little bit of a brake check. And pull away. Actually, I don't even know if I really brake checked him. I thought I was brake checking him because I saw the arrow behind the car. But somehow I suspect that I managed to get just away from him on the banking, and now we just kind of got to pull away here in the inner loop as the sun is beginning to rise here at the Rolex 24 for 1998. Running second overall at the moment, second in GT1. We've got a World Sports Car Ferrari all over the back of us. And I'll be damned if this isn't pretty cool. You know, this is the thing about project cars too. Sometimes you can be transported right into some classic racing moments, and this is one of them. As the sun rises, and we're just holding off this Ferrari. Down to fourth gear for the chicane. Get it in there. Come on, David. That was okay. Looking back at the Ferrari, he's turned off his lights. There's still a car behind him. I think it may be a GT1 class car. Maybe it's a Ferrari. Yeah, it's a GT1. It might be the GT1 Ferrari, which is weird because that GT1 Ferrari never actually raced. It's kind of a weird inclusion into this game. But, well, the GT1 Ferrari just passed the P900 Ferrari, so that's an interesting commentary. And yeah, the GT1 cars are starting to come alive because that Ferrari, the GT1 Ferrari, I should say, is now coming for me. So I guess my theory was correct. The prototypes are better at night, GT cars are better in the day. Or at least when you're talking 90s sports car racing. When things can get a little bit more warm, suddenly you can use that power that you didn't really have access to. Yeah, there you go, best sector so far. So, the technical stop-start portion of the course, suddenly as it's sunny, we're much better. Funny how that works out. So now working through NASCAR Turn 2. Still being chased by both Ferraris, both version of the 90s Ferraris. There's actually a GTO class Ferrari in this race as well. I think he's fairly off the pace. It's kind of interesting that we haven't lapped any GTO cars, as we've got 5 minutes to go, so pretty much two to three laps remaining in this one to get to the end. And we definitely got through the chicane much better than either version of the Ferrari. But that GTO, or the GT1 Ferrari, is fast in a straight line. He's definitely closing me down. Oh, as the car, it almost felt like the physics were starting to screw up there because the car was starting to kind of jink towards the inside, and I had to do all I could to keep it from spinning down into the first turn. Not sure why that was. Very weird. Now I'm starting to overdrive because I'm behind the Ferrari and I'm trying to get him back. So that means we fall to third overall, third in GT1. And I'm getting some green arrows behind me, so that means that prototype Ferrari as well is back there quite close. Couldn't quite get a draft. I was trying to get that launch onto the banking. Couldn't quite do it. That GT1 Ferrari is fast. It definitely feels like the physics are bugging out a little bit on the banking. I don't know why it's doing this late in the race, but you just kind of, I don't know if you've noticed that. If you look, it just kind of looks like the inside wheel wants to pull in on the banking. Very weird. All right, let's see if we can get up to this Ferrari. Pass him. Now, like I said, he's faster on the banking. And there it is again. The physics are starting to bug out. Very weird. Yeah, look at that. It's just like starting to slide all over the place. And that seems like that Ferrari is like a friggin' antimatter gun, and he's like trying to screw me up. This is some Star Trek level stuff right here. Yeah, it just bucked. The car just bucked going into turn 1. There was nothing I could do to keep that car from going off like that. That was definitely a physics bug right there. That's the reason I run only 15 cars in the races. The Xbox One literally can't handle more than 15 AI without completely bugging out the physics and making all the cars completely weird and undrivable. And for whatever reason, I was fine up until this point, until I got around that Ferrari, and then things got very strange on the oval portion of the track. So we get down to second gear, just clip that apex. Well, perhaps I just need to let the Ferrari go so I can actually start to handle the car on the oval again. The 333 SP still holding on to the back of me. I feel like I'm just faster than him over more of the track, that I don't really have to worry about him necessarily. Assuming, of course, I can get the car braked into turn 1. Turn 1 seems to be the real bugaboo where the physics really have a fit. So we're going to have to work really hard in turn 1 to keep it all underneath me. So we work through NASCAR 3 and 4 for one of the final times here at Daytona, and we're definitely pulling away from the 333, so that's good. There we go. I guess you just have to brake early. I did lock up the brakes just a little bit, but considering the last 2 times I've gone through there, that was definitely an improvement.
1 minute remaining.
All right, last minute of the race. This hasn't been quite as exciting, I would say, as the Continental race, certainly. But that's kind of period correct. Oh boy, howdy! Almost lost it going into I think I've cooked the tires a little too much. Too much locking up. Whoa, whoa, big lag. Big amount of lag there. Okie dokie. Maybe I haven't cooked the tires. Maybe the game is just lagging. Who knows? All right, so we will get behind the Ferrari. You're not going to take this away from me. I'm going to at least... Oh my God, look at that. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but the game is not liking something that's going on as we go down to 4th gear. Oh, nope, we're just going to go off. More lag. Holy smokes. There's a lot of lag. A lot of lag. All right, let's see if we can pass the Ferrari without breaking physics. Side by side, I had to kind of like steer into the or out of the corner to hold on to the car there. Holy cow. And there we go. That's the end of the race. That was a close finish, actually. He said a minute to go. I didn't know that was the end of the race, but woo! That's the cooldown lap. Well, that was interesting. Certainly an interesting finish to this one. Literally breaking physics by the end of it, but hey, we did it. So a 3rd place finish, 3rd overall, 3rd in the GT1 class. GTO cars were actually 7th and 8th overall. Those were the Ferraris. The P900 Ferrari 333s did not fare very well in this race. The car directly behind me was the winner in the LMP class, and the car that was missing the wing, the Lista Ferrari, was all the way back there in 9th overall. I'm surprised he actually didn't make a pit stop. And then down through the rest of the field, you can just see where the rest of the Ferraris finished. And there is the DNF, the single DNF from the, or I guess not DNF, but several laps behind Mercedes that had that crash on the back straightaway in the middle of the night in the fog. And then there was a couple of Mustangs as well from the Trans Am series. Weird race. The Panoz was actually the 4th place GT1 car as well. So good race for Panoz in the top 5. So physics and standing starts and all sorts of things that didn't want to agree with me in this race, but it was certainly an interesting race. There's no doubts in my mind about that. So if you enjoyed this, hope you leave a like on it. I think the next video I will be doing is a GTP style Rolex 24 with the Nissan GTP, just a little teaser for those of you who have been asking. And then we will move into the modern categories of Rolex 24 eras, I guess you could say. And as well, I'm planning on doing a live stream where we will go online and you can race me personally in Rolex 24 style races at Daytona. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube, and we'll see you in the next video.